Every journey begins. Every journey begins with a simple act of care. For Quest to Unite Africa, that journey started with something simple: a mother, a newborn, and a promise that no life would be forgotten. We did not begin with buildings, we began with people. We packed mother newborn kits with our own hands because real change starts where the need is greatest. Those kids traveled farther than we imagined, and they opened our eyes to a deeper truth. Aid saves lives, but infrastructure saves generations. So we grew. Together with donors, volunteers, and partners, we sent a medical container to Burkina Faso. Not just supplies, but hope. Not just boxes, but proof that when a community comes together, healing moves across borders. That moment changed us because we realized something powerful. We weren't just delivering help, we were building a future. Now the journey continues. The next chapter is bigger than a shipment, bigger than a campaign. We are raising funds to build a state-of-the-art hospital, a place where mothers can give birth safely, where families can find care close to home, and where communities can grow stronger for generations to come. This hospital is not just a structure, it's a promise. A promise that healthcare will no longer be temporary. A promise that dignity will have a permanent home. And just like every step before, we cannot do this alone. Every gift, every brick, every name placed on the founder path becomes part of a story that began with compassion and is growing into legacy. It helps us move from emergency aid to lasting healing, from containers to care that never leaves, from vision to reality. Join us, stand with us, help us build a hospital that will serve generations, moving healthcare into action. Visit Q2UA.org today.
All right. Shalom and salama. Shalom and salama. Yeah, I wanted to do this little impromptu because honestly, I didn't think I was going to be able to get on up and get this done today. Haven't been on here in a while. Looks like about a little over a month. So I apologize for that when a lot of things have been going on in the background to support these different projects and initiatives and endeavors there on the African continent. So right now, we are. I'll have to see what is going on with our project over in Ghana after I discuss things with the king. So I should have some updates on that. Just praying for the Most High's favor, as always. Um, and and there are also other opportunities that we're working to be able to support our brothers and sisters on the ground on the continent. And as a leader, I have to be mindful and recognize that sometimes with different goals that we have, um, some of those goals may not be available at that time. And, um, I'm going to try to do my best to always put forth those goals. I pray that they pan out. If they don't pan out, then the Most High will allow us to pivot and shift to other opportunities. So when I say that, today is it's still early in the day. There is a deadline of sorts, and that's why I need to speak to the king to see about things. On the continent, it's going through some different changes, and those changes, excuse me, as I drink some tea, those changes are necessary because it's providing a growth. And the growth is something that's different because this is the very first time in their nation, and I would say nations, the continent, and their generations, to see a change of global order that's happening as we speak. And as it's happening as we speak, they are encountering that change in the global order. And that change is something that is strange and foreign to them, just as it is to us. And in the background, as I work with folks that may not necessarily share the same vision, because I do work with people that do not share the vision of the continent the way that most of us do. And it's not to disparage or demean or dehumanize anyone, but everyone has had some sort of a negative connotation when it came and when it has come to the continent and doing business. Now, I do take all those to to note, and I have been able to spot on out and verify some things. I do go through stringent verification. I like to triangulate in different processes to make sure that what is being said is said and what is being delivered is being delivered. And that's the prudence and the wisdom and discernment that we must have as we look at these different endeavors. Now, in terms of the hospital project initiative, the request was 400,000, and I didn't give an open, or it was basically open ended. It was open ended, but we did give and have a an arbitrary, and I'm not going to say arbitrary, but it was discussed because there are people, villagers, farmers that are over in the eastern region that are waiting and have been waiting for this transaction to occur. And, one of the things that I have to look at, and that's just my faith, my walk, it's humility. So all I can do is present the opportunities for our people. If I had the monies to fund things, I would do it. I've been there, I've seen the opportunities and trying to explain that to folks, to show that in visuals, to give the understanding that these are the opportunities. I don't know what else to say. I can't say anymore. The reality is that it's still up to our people to understand what's happening in this world. I don't care how many fake peace treaties or peace deals or whatever they want to have, it doesn't matter. Because the global shift is coming and that shift is happening, and that shift is actually defining Africa right now. Hmm, Here we go. Sorry, please bear with me. I'm trying to share this. Africa's largest oil producer. All right, let me get this in the frame. Shout out to brother ASAP for sharing this. Africa's largest oil producer intends to beat countries like the U.S. and Iran with the world's most ambitious grassroots refinery pipeline. Nigeria Nigeria's refining sector has disclosed plans for tremendous growth, with the country mapping out strategies to increase its refining by the end of 2030 with the construction of 24 new refineries. And let me tell you, here in the United States, I think the capacity is about 12 million barrels of in terms of, I think the global capacity is about 20. Trying to think about the capacity. It's like around maybe 200 million barrels a day, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure I get my global oil output per day, per day. And of course, those numbers have been relatively skewed. Okay, 106 million barrels per day of liquid, which is about 84.5 million barrels per day of the crude oil. And yes, and now the U.S. It produces about 13.6 million, while Saudi Arabia produces around 11.2 million. Um, Now, again, production has gone down. And I would say that the 13.6 million, um, and and that's oil. That's oil. But for petroleum products, the United States is about 23 million. So, being able to have about 2.64 million barrels per day, um, it it allows for revenue to occur, but it also provides more of a stake in a capacity globally that's dwindling. Now, if we look at what is happening and how things are being impacted, especially with the amount of consumption in terms of global oil and petroleum consumption, that is being diminished. I was just looking at, about and on some comments regarding a potential strike that hit Egypt, and it hit an oil. It was something related to oil um, storage and refining that was in the um, their Mediterranean port, which is their port that's the connector of the Suez Canal, and an alleged, and I keyword said the alleged drone from Iran or Iranian backed proxies had hit the ship, causing two ships to catch on fire. So one ship was targeted, and with that explosion, another ship had or was had combusted, had been set on fire. And so with that, what that showed was you now have major choke points in all of the maritime corridors there in the Middle East. So you have your Suez Canal along with your Bab el Mandeb and now the big one of the Strait of Hormuz, that are now hot contested zones, with the Strait of Hormuz being actively closed by Iran. And I say closed in terms of shipments coming through by way of Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. So not every so it's not a free flowing corridor of maritime trade or activity. Those days are gone. And now the opportunity for the continent, Nigeria, is right on the Atlantic. And it can get to places in South America. It can get to um, North Africa. It can get to the Indian Ocean, Asia. There's a global market that's there. It may take a little bit of time to reach, but it can get there nonetheless. And so, right now, with the proposed construction of 24 new refineries, this creates a big deal because, again, strategically speaking, and I know Nigeria is a great oil producing nation, but I look at it like this: Nigeria is not the only ones that's looking at oil production, oil exploration, and things of that nature, because you still have the same thing going on in places like Ghana, Togo, Benin, Ivory Coast, right there on the Gulf of Guinea, right there on the Atlantic Ocean, that that they have pockets of oil. They have deep sea exploration and things of that nature. So just to give a couple of the highlights here, the projection comes from the Industrial Info Resources, which stated that continued investment in both new and existing refining facilities have the potential to transform stream oil sector and diminish the country's longstanding dependency on imported petroleum products. So what that actually does is, not only can they um, have the petroleum capacity, but also then begin to export those excess um, oil revenues. So basically, down in this article, the projects are intended to place Nigeria far ahead of other significant refining markets such as the United States and Iran, with which each have 11 refineries if they are finished by 2031. And they say if they are finished because you have a worldwide disruption that is going on. And Nigeria is able to sit outside of the geographic um, restrictions, per se, that the Middle East is embroiled in. And what does that mean? That doesn't just mean that, I'm highlighting the oil, but this is also for commerce and trade throughout Africa. Because when your energy is sustained, then your production is sustained in other businesses. And as those businesses have sustained production, then the value of those businesses go up. The cost doesn't have to go up. The cost can actually relatively stay the same. But on the scale of the world economy, that then begins to create parity amongst other nations. And one thing that Africa has had throughout the past has always been an artificial destruction of its currency. The valuation is always a 10%, 150, 300% valuation compared to Western currencies. And they do that for a reason. They do that to ensure that economic trade is always out of balance. They do that to ensure that financial resiliency is always diminished on the global scale. These foreign policies affect these other countries. And these other countries are now realizing that this is their opportunity to be able to grow, to be able to sustain, to be able to build with a lessened impact from the systemic and systematic disruptions. So, again, in this article, Nigeria is anticipated to process a greater portion of its crude oil domestically, enhance domestic fuel supply, lessen reliance on imports, and perhaps become a major exporter of refined petroleum products to other African markets by increasing domestic refinery. That's the name of the game. Because when West Africa is able to do business, all of Africa is able to do business. You know, a lot of people take for granted a lot of the resources and minerals that come from out of West Africa and Africa in general. Here at Q2UA, our focus is building the capacity for critical infrastructure and economic development, health, education, innovation, and production. Those are the building blocks, those are the cornerstones for a healthy and vibrant and thriving society. And that can be done on the continent. And the benefits that that reaps isn't just a benefit on the continent, but it's a benefit worldwide. When we know how to respect one another, when we know how to respect the talents of one another, the resources of one another, understand that the potential is limitless. What Africa has gone through has been a brain drain for centuries. And they've known that, they've realized that, they understand that, they know who has invented and has thrived in those inventions. We haven't thrived, but we've helped others to thrive as we have innovated through necessity. The necessity of not being unalived, the necessity of ensuring that there is and had been the ability to work in a less chaotic environment with innovations on the plantation. Afterwards, being able to create inventions that would help to facilitate and ease the use of different productions. But those innovations were not given the proper credit to whom the credit was due. And over the course of many of our lifetimes, especially within the recent years, we've come to find out that a large majority of inventions that we come to take for granted, especially I do in Florida with AC, most of us around the world do with stoplights. The convention may be different in terms of the color schemes, but the premise is the same. With different type of respirators and respiratory devices, Garrett Morgan pioneered that one, to open heart and heart transplant surgeries. We've done it all. So imagine what we can do with our brothers and sisters on the continent with the resources that they are able to possess. Well, resource and innovation creates modernization. Modernization creates capital gains. Capital gains creates influence. Influence creates power. You see the dynamic. Understanding how to harness what has been that what we've been blessed with is something that we're just beginning to understand fully in its fullness. And I wouldn't even say in its fullness, we're just tapping it. I think that's the most appropriate way and word to say. We're just tapping that potential. So, again, I am excited about the future of where the continent is going. They still, and we still, we're all growing. We're still understanding one another. We're still learning how to cooperate with one another. But this is why we say for these projects, for these programs, for the ability to even come on here, your support at Q2UA.org is vital and essential. It's about building these relationships one project at a time. So, with that said, I was only going to jump on for a few minutes and go from there, trying to get back into my normal swing of things. As you will find me back on Covenant Awakenings on Monday. So, with that said, to all my Q2A family and beyond, be blessed. Shalom and salama.